Welcome back to TalkBacks, where karma isn't a maybe, it's a guarantee. In today's episode, we've got 3 revenge stories that prove silence doesn't mean surrender. And sometimes the best payback comes when no one sees it coming. First, a quiet new student is mocked for being too poor to matter, until the school finds out who her father really is. Then, a rising star at a tech company watches her manager steal her entire project, and lets him present it himself, incomplete, broken, and live in front of the board. And finally, a woman who called her best friend family, only to discover she's been sleeping with her husband for 10 years and decides it's time for everyone else to find out. Let's get into it. You'd think a private school filled with kids from money would have some basic manners. Spoiler, they don't. I transferred to Greystone Prep in the middle of sophomore year. My parents told me to lay low, focus on grades, and avoid drama. They had their reasons, which I'll get to. The plan? Keep my head down, graduate, and get out. The reality? Some kids smell different like blood in the water. And if you don't show off your lifestyle, designer bags, ski trip Instagrams, new phones every semester, they make you the target. It started small. During lunch, a girl named Camila joked that my backpack looked like it came from a thrift store. One guy, Drew, asked in front of the whole class if I was on scholarship. He said it with a smirk. When I didn't answer, he added, "It's okay, charity's important. We need a good tax write-off." Everyone laughed. Even the teacher smiled. From then on, it escalated. They'd tag me in poor memes. One day, someone slid a McDonald's job application under my locker. At a school costume event, someone dressed as a broke student, holding a sign that said, "Hi, I'm my name." I took it silently. I didn't react. Because I had a plan. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that my family wasn't broke. Not even close. We were low profile for a reason. My dad owns a construction company that specializes in education infrastructure. Building schools. Including the one we were standing in. Greystone's campus. Fully rebuilt 3 years ago. Funded and managed by us. The contracts. Still active. And me? I wasn't just a student. I was also an intern. I had back-end access to renovation proposals, rental agreements, and the annual donor gala. Fast forward to spring. The school announced its annual Founders Gala, a big event where families with deep ties to the school get invited for dinner and presentations. Very exclusive. I knew Drew's dad had just been added to the board. Camilla's mom was an education consultant. Both were bragging that their families would be featured. So I made a few quiet edits. The week before the gala, the school emailed all confirmed guests a digital welcome booklet. It included list of major donors, names of top student contributors, speech lineup, and surprise, renovation and legacy partnership honorees. The Carter Family Construction Group, represented by my full name. Camilla's mom saw it first. She asked her daughter, "Do you know this girl?" Camila went pale. Drew followed up in their group chat. "What the hell? Since when does she have a company?" The next morning, everyone stared at me, whispers, cider eyes. That day, I wore my thrift store backpack with pride. At the gala, I was introduced by the head of school. I gave a short speech about building futures, not facades. I mentioned how we don't need wealth to act wealthy. That character shows up long before a paycheck does. People clapped. My dad smiled. Camilla's family left early. The next Monday, the bullying stopped. They didn't apologize, but they avoided me like I was radioactive. Drew switched seats. Camila removed me from all group chats. One of the teachers asked if I'd like to speak to the younger class about leadership. I declined because I wasn't interested in being liked. I just wanted them to know. Don't confuse quiet with weak. Don't mistake humility for poverty. And never assume someone's beneath you just because they're not showing off. Sometimes the ones you look down on are the ones holding the foundation beneath your feet. That's what I learned that year. You don't always need to scream back. Just know where the wires are buried. And speaking of sabotage, the next story is about a woman who let her coworker steal the spotlight, only to watch him fall apart live in front of the entire board. corporate betrayal doesn't always look like a knife in the back. Sometimes it looks like a smile during a meeting and a great job that ends with your name missing from the final deck. I worked at a mid-sized software company, the kind that hosts casual Fridays but expects 68-hour weeks. I was a UX lead on a product redesign project that had been stuck in development hell for over a year. When I got pulled in, my manager told me, "Just do your best. We're not expecting miracles." 6 weeks later, I had mock-ups, data, backed flowcharts, and user testing feedback, all cleaned, packaged, and aligned for presentation. But there was a catch. My manager, let's call him Ethan, hated being upstaged. Ethan didn't know how to do the work, but he knew how to speak confidently in meetings. He liked credit. He liked being the guy who put the right people in place. One Friday afternoon, he asked me for all my materials so he could review before sending them up. The next Monday, he presented the entire thing to the VP team. Without me? I found out because one of the directors, who I'd worked with before, emailed me saying, "Great job on the redesign. Ethan said you helped tidy it up." Helped? I was livid. I went to Ethan and asked why I wasn't invited to the meeting. His answer? I didn't want to overwhelm them with too many voices. You'll get your credit eventually? That's when I stopped sending him everything. Instead, I quietly removed 3 key pieces from the files. 1. The finalized flowchart. 2. The updated user personas. 3. The A/B test summary. I sent him the rest, polished, professional, and incomplete in very subtle ways. Then I waited. 2 weeks later, the board wanted a full walkthrough during the quarterly strategy review. Ethan was so excited. He invited me to the meeting, but only to sit in and observe. I said, of course. I showed up with my own copy of the full design system, annotated, printed. Ethan began his presentation. It was going well until he clicked into the flowchart slide. Blank. Then he moved to the personas. Outdated. He stuttered, fumbled, said something about revisions pending. The VP of product raised an eyebrow. Didn't you say this was finalized last month? Ethan laughed nervously. Yeah, some of the files didn't transfer. But the core's the same. That's when the director who emailed me earlier interrupted. Actually, I think my name might have the finalized versions, right? I smiled, opened my folder, passed them out across the table. I was asked to walk them through the user logic behind the redesign. Ethan had to sit down and watch. By the end of the meeting, the CEO said, "Next time, let's make sure the person who did the work is the one presenting it." 3 days later, I was moved to report directly to the product VP. Ethan was transitioned to a different initiative. 2 months after that, he quit. Here's the thing. I could have gone to HR. I could have fought for a name in an email chain. But there's something better than arguing for credit. Letting them claim the spotlight, and letting that spotlight expose how empty they really are. Some people rise by standing on others. But take away the platform they're standing on, and you find out who actually built it. And if you thought that was satisfying, wait until you hear what happens when someone sleeps with your husband for 10 years and thinks you'll never find out. Let's just say, she should have canceled her birthday party. I didn't lose my mind when I found out. I lost it when I realized how long it had been going on and how many moments she'd stood beside me, smiling, pretending, while living a second life behind my back. Let's rewind. Her name's Lindsay. We met in college. Became inseparable. I was the anxious one, she was the wild one. The kind of girl who'd talk you into spontaneous road trips or tequila shots at 2 a.m. When I got engaged at 26, she cried more than I did. When I picked out my wedding dress, she was the one zipping me up. When I walked down the aisle, she stood inches behind me in satin, holding my veil. Fast forward 10 years. Married. 2 kids. Stable life. Lindsay's still single, still part of everything, birthday parties, babysitting, beach vacations. My kids called her Auntie Lynn. My husband, Greg, always said she was like family. I agreed. Until I found a hotel keycard in his jacket pocket. It was for a boutique hotel downtown. On a Wednesday, I asked him about it. He shrugged and said he met a client for drinks. that they got too drunk to drive and split a room. That would have been the end if I hadn't logged into our shared cloud backup the next morning. He forgot his phone was auto-sensing photos. I saw one blurry champagne bottle, another, a hand with red nail polish, then a full shot, Greg, shirtless, in bed, taking a selfie. Beside him, Lindsay, sleeping, wearing his shirt. I felt like the air left my lungs. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started pulling receipts. For the next 3 weeks, I quietly gathered evidence. Messages on a deleted WhatsApp backup. Hotel bookings in her name with his card. Old emails they thought were deleted. GPS history from an old iPad our kids used that still had Greg's account logged in. It went back 10 years. 10 years. Since 3 months before we got married. They slept together before the wedding. She toasted me at my bridal shower. She held my baby before my mother did. And through it all, she smiled like she loved me. Maybe she did. Just not enough. I didn't tell a soul. Not yet. But I did RSVP to her upcoming 35th birthday. She was planning a backyard dinner. String lights, catered tapas, signature cocktails. She even made an Instagram countdown. I offered to help with music. She agreed. On the night of the party, I arrived early. I plugged in a playlist. Checked the BLUETOODH speaker. Then I slid in a new track, labeled Happy Birthday.mp3, into the queue. At 8:42 p.m., just after the cake was cut, the track played. It wasn't music. It was a stitched-together audio file. Clips of Lindsay whispering Greg's name. Greg laughing and saying no one knows. Lindsay moaning, calling him babe. A screen recording scrolled through Sin's photos, the ones from the hotel, from the car, from his office. Silence fell. Plates dropped. Someone gasped. Then the screen went black, and I stood up and said, "Happy birthday, Lindsay. From the maid of honor. To the woman you honored for 10 years. I left. I didn't wait for the fallout. But it came fast. Lindsay was disowned by half our friend group. Her work in family therapy ironically suspended her. Greg moved out. He begged, I filed. The divorce finalized 3 months later. The kids. I told them the truth in a way they could understand. They don't ask for Auntie Lynn anymore. People ask if I regret going public like that. I don't. Some betrayals aren't private wounds. Some deserve to be burned into memory so no one forgets how much they cost. Loyalty isn't about who stands beside you when you shine. It's about who stays behind you when you turn your back. And when both of them fail that test, sometimes the most graceful thing you can do is bring the receipts to the party. Friends, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Pro Revenge series here on TalkBacks. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another revenge story. See you next time.